I saw this one YouTuber that started his all of his videos with him just drinking coffee and sipping it, breathing into the mic for like 30 seconds. And I also thought about how I conduct these intros. Welcome to Blank Canvas. This is a project around accessibility with AI and automation, brought to you by Plinko Solutions. My name is Jonathan McLemore. This is a really cool project where daily I'm pretty much walking you through what I do as a sole proprietor to bridge this accessibility into the market, specifically by building sales infrastructure. Today, as per promise yesterday, actually, I'll figure out this to begin with. So one thing I'm trying to do is figure out better ways to pretty much do this YouTube stuff, which is consistency around what I'm bringing to the table. Before, what I had designed and what I had kind of like prepared to record was really just episodic series on these 5 pillars. In each of these videos, I'm still kind of working through how much do I need to reference in terms of consistencies. If you're new here, highly recommend check it out from the beginning. If not, then feel free to come along for the journey, kind of see what we're up to. So yesterday, I kind of walked through a project that I worked on, which was a 3-series scraping video series, where pretty much 80-20 on the production quality, really leaning in onto the quality side of things of the material, what I'm actually bridging, and the intents behind it. To kind of recap from that, it was mainly focused on scraping for research purposes. Today, I'll be focusing more on direct outreach, so kind of a bit more on the founder playbook side. This is more of a sales system kind of video, so in the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'll be walking you through pretty much what I do daily on Upwork for an hour every single day, right? So what I do with these blank canvas videos is I normally just set a 50-minute timer, and I just let that run, making sure that I keep the talk within 10 to 15 minutes. So yeah, let's dive right into it. So this year's Upwork. Upwork is specifically for automation, one of those platforms where you have the most qualified prospects that are interested in the service. As you can see, the kind of 2-second version here, breaking down, what is automation and how I can deliver that to a company. I will say, automation is one of those industries, especially with AI, where you have people that are problem unaware and solution unaware. Then you also have a good bucket of people that are problem aware and solution unaware. And then you have the bucket of people that I'm pushing for, which is problem aware and solution aware. I need to sneeze. Give me a moment. Okay. Okay, I sneezed. My nose is still itchy. I don't think I have a cold. However, I did sneeze 5 times before starting this, and I didn't sneeze at all morning, which is why I'm a bit sniffly. So I apologize for that, if it's a little bit of ASMR. But anyways, what I do here is I go hit automation, and typically the kind of rationale behind this is you see that the job feed is always kind of, thankfully, pumping with new material. So what I like to do is set a minimum to 40, because most projects are between 15 hours to 30 hours, which is 2 to 3 weeks worth of work. So 40 an hour kind of brings that to a decent deal size. I also like to do a 500 to a 5K kind of threshold to just see what's on the field, see what I can do. I'm mainly looking for projects that I can build without opening a code terminal, and I'll explain why in a bit. I also, in terms of Upwork and how it kind of works, hold on a second. Okay, I sneezed 5 times in a row, got a phone call, and my browser crashed at the same time. So a lot happened in those 5 minutes that I paused. But let's bring you back into it. So the reason why I lean towards Upwork pretty much daily is, if you look over here, if I just type automation up here, the job feed itself is actually constantly pumping with new material. However, what I'm looking for are projects that have projects that have a minimum hourly of 40 an hour, because most projects typically take between 15 to 30 hours to begin with, based on my 2.5 years of doing them. Fixed price, I like to shoot for around the 500 to 5K mark. Reason being, like I mentioned, deal size, this makes sense. For every 50 applications, I typically get a response because I'm a lot of the jobs I do on Upwork, often I get paid off of Upwork, which is kind of pros and cons to it. Pros, I don't have to pay the 10%. Well, the client doesn't have to pay the 10% fee. Cons, it doesn't show up in my account and I then don't rank as much. So, that's what we're trying to push for, to change. Proposals is kind of how Upwork works in terms of credits. So I don't have to, but the way that I like to apply is to kind of bid, which I'll explain in a bit. Because of conservatism, we're going to keep that below the 15 mark. I then also like to prioritize USD. Reason being, the arbitrage I make on that as a Canadian is substantial. So you'll see here, I have a job posted an hour ago, 8 hours ago, 10 hours ago, 8 hours ago. That's kind of how the ball goes. For today's purpose, what I would normally do, if this timer wasn't sitting in front of me, is I would go through and I would open not every single job, but the jobs that stood out to me that had a lot of automation pretty much mentioned. For our sake and purposes, for examples, I'm going to just open one. I'm going to use a platform called Cluely. So Cluely, up until this point, has been, it's only like 2-3 months old. They have a really interesting feature. You're able to provide basically a system prompt. And one of the pros of Cluely is that it exists on your screen. So it understands your context. You don't need to take new screenshots essentially. And then I fed it here something called a PitchFrame proposal, which I'll drop in the description notes. You'll be able to kind of copy this. You can ask it to either repurpose it for your language model, for Cluely, however you'd like. All it is just basic instructions on how to basically take a job description, present the core problem back, the desired deliverables, the timeline urgency, and the relevant tech stack. It then presents it as a sort of one-shot that you can use to reach out. So I'll show you that in real time. So switch over to this one. Now, what I like to do, obviously read through this, but for sake and purposes of demo, I'm going to take this. I'm also going to verify what competition's like. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bid. No bids, so I'm fresh land. Like I mentioned, one of the caveats of thing here, but hopefully we can look beyond that. Just based on how well I can actually present the information. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to center this a little bit. Paste this in here. And what's happening, it's going on the back end, taking that information, kind of giving me a pitch. Now, the intro is fairly generic. I won't lie to you. It's not the best. Case studies are great. What I like to do is kind of run this through either Grok, deep research, basically find case studies to kind of prove the point. The main key point here is the live problem solve. So what I like to do with this is expand on the problem solving piece. And then this is really what I do to kind of start for each job. I go over to napkin.ai, which is an amazing tool for visualization. And I basically feed this in and take the time to deliberately understand it. So for our sake and purposes, what I see here is they have a lead capture coming in via front, which is a dialer, if I'm understanding correctly. I can even go verify that, which I think is correct. I also misspelled dialer. Yeah, dial pad. And then also they mentioned Avinode. So if I'm looking up that as well, that's a sales and sourcing platform. So it's like a marketplace kind of thing. Again, if you're not familiar with these tools, you can dive deeper, run the research. It always benefits you to know more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and just close this window so you can see the screen. You're going to head over to napkin.ai, free at the time of this recording. Going to go ahead and create a blank napkin. As you can see, I have quite the collection of them. Dozens. Going to go ahead and paste this in without zooming 100 meters and break this down. So this is pretty much what I'm looking for. I could go section by section, but the idea here is I click this. And what's happening is it auto-generates these visuals that I can then use in a visual presentation. So I'll be talking about it, zooming in, just like I'm doing here on this YouTube video, where I'll go break down pretty much all the steps that are happening here. I like this one. It has a sort of sequential style to it, which I really enjoy. I'm also going to break this down component by component. So I'm going to go ahead, break this apart. I'll say, hey, let's dive a little bit deeper. And basically just kind of reiterate throughout the process. This allows me then to go record a Loom, record a quick video, just slap the computer off its stand for a second by accident. Actually go and take this and make use of it. So here's probably the most accurate way of showing it. Of course, I'm checking to see if this makes coherent sense, right? This is kind of the process when it comes to job applying. You want to set a 10-minute timer, do as much research as you can. The reason why I like to do just a number of these all in one shot, I find that context switching is really tough. So if I spend the next 10, 15 minutes actually applying to this job, which I probably will, then this one's interesting, a battle rap video. Then I have to go back and kind of restart the process. Whereas if I do a bunch of them and I know I'm going to apply to like 4 jobs in one shot, I can prepare the visual presentation for each one also in one shot. So then when I record and I'm done recording and I send that one, I can immediately next just record the next one. And it becomes very much a deep focus piece. With this tactic, it's enabled me, I'll zoom this one back out. I don't know what the battle rap video development piece is, but I'll look into that. What this allows me to do is get surface area and volume. I come from a background in technical recruitment, so I've seen a lot of job feeds, and I gotta stop slapping this mic when I talk. I've seen a lot of job feeds, and they don't have new jobs every 10 minutes to an hour at any given time of the day. Automation is a different industry. So the strategy is a bit different. Speed and volume plays to your advantage. Of course, high quality, but quality indexes a little bit differently compared to other job feeds because there's just less competition. Give or take, obviously, right? Like if you're applying for a sales development role and it's with a big company that's not a no-name, competition is very real as well. I've worked for an agency before where like there's 50 plus people and it's like round 3. And I'm like, come on, guys, we should have filtered through this already. But recruiters are overwhelmed. HR people are overwhelmed. And that's something to take into context. So there you have it. That's a very real lifetime way of applying. I'll share the Loom for the specific video in the description so you kind of see what it looks like once it's fully cooked. But that's it. That's kind of the idea. So dig, research, speed, and volume. You know what? No, I refuse. You know what I did? I had another 2-hour meeting. I was preparing the episode for this week for the Citizen Developer. And then I came back to this and I created the visuals. And I was like, you know what? Why would I, in the nature of what I'm doing here, why would I go record this afterwards, go pretty it up, and then send it? You know what? Instead of that, I'm going to do this live. I'm going to do this real time. Only caveat is I'm going to have to record it twice because I can't run Loom, have my video camera, and this might have the same output input kind of thing. Doesn't really matter. Anyways, for the sake of purposes, I'll show you guys what we got. So what I like to do is I'll go to something called loom.com, right? And what it does is it takes my little camera that I have on the bottom right here. I'm using OBS right now. But if I follow through with that, my camera usually shows up in the bottom right here. And what I like to do, I start the pitch with pretty much having the job description open. And I'll say, hey, hi, my name is Jonathan McLemore. I am a solutions consultant or an automation specialist based out of Toronto, Ontario. I'm also a dual citizen with the United States. Really cool project here. I figured just kind of give you the 80-20 and how I would approach this. Just a bit of context about myself. I've been building with AI for the past 2.5 years, mainly focusing on sales infrastructure and CRM work in the last, I want to say, year or so. I come from a background of sales management and technical recruitment, so this is very much right up my alley. I've built with HubSpot and Twilio. Evernote is a bit interesting. It's a new one, but I started to dig into it and it seems very similar to some tools I've used. Front as well as a dialer kind of management system, and a dial pad is for me kind of makes sense in terms of just being able to draw it together. I've used Pixie before, um, which is a similar kind of tool which allows you to kind of pull across from them. I also have used Telnix, which is very similar to Twilio, specifically for voice agents. So yeah, to kind of walk you through how I would approach this. To begin, I would first kind of look at your existing funnels and how you're capturing leads. And then from there, understanding how you are responding to messages, getting a bit of transcripts, some sort of data points on that, so I can train an AI agent to do exactly that. And then when it comes to tying it together, we would use make.com, which is just a no-code automation tool for just wiring software together. From there, we tie HubSpot over to Evernote API. The API is the application programming interface. It's where the log of information pretty much goes. And then from that, we would pull that information, run it through an email automation, which I'll walk through in a bit, and ensure that the guardrails are in place to make sure everything is all nice and clean. So for the lead capture, just kind of walk through what that audit process would look like, as I would see how you receive that inbound, identify what kind of sources are you pulling that from, right? And then pretty much making sure that information passes through seamlessly to HubSpot. We would then eliminate the data entry, make sure none of the actual prospects fall through. And then when it comes to iterating on the best process for messaging, we would go here, see how that AI agent is receiving that inquiry, how well it's able to collect that information. We would do a few simulations on this to kind of make sure it's up to par. Make sure the qualification pieces are in play, the responses are all timely, and it rinses and repeats. If the question is complex, we make sure the system can pick up on that, right? If it's an edge case, we then direct it over to a human agent, and the same kind of thing happens. All the information, all the context is kept. Make sure that the resolution happens as well in a timely manner. Now, for flight booking, just to kind of map out what it looks like on the technical side, is the lead requests that flight, HubSpot gets triggered, the API then goes and digs for those details, comes back with the availability, the pricing, and creates a draft booking, which you can then present for confirmation. The email side of things, similar to the SMS, we'd look at kind of how this is already being done, ensure that the triggers are in place for the generation to also be, reasonable, personalized, and accurate. And that, of course, is a human in the loop if you would like to kind of approve that email or just send it off to confirm. Like I mentioned, there'll be automated tests in the process to be sure the quality and the data is falling through without any errors. And as well, I'll make sure that there's any sort of setup, any sort of documentation that you might need to get started. And then, from there, if you're interested in diving a bit deeper, be more than happy to send chat. Let's talk soon. Then I would hit send. Actually, what I would do is I would take that, right? I go over to Upwork and go all the way down here. For sake and purposes, I do like a 50% here at the start, 50% at the end. If they're tight for budget, 20, 30, or 40%, however that works out. I think it's 40%. Make it accessible. And I have a nice little shortcut using something called text.blaze or blaze.today. There's a number of tools like this that allow you to basically create these little shortcuts. So I go and type that in, /UW, and it outputs this. Paste the Loom link right here. Tailor this up so it fits the copy for them. And then, it's all nice and digestible. So, one last note I wanted to make, because that 2-hour meeting I had was actually really inspiring. This week, I'm going to be, I mentioned from yesterday, improving the YouTube style. So tomorrow, I'm going to be scraping YouTube top performing AI and automation videos and showing how I do that research in live time so that I can make better decisions as a sole proprietor, as a dude talking about AI on YouTube. So stay tuned for that. Let's keep growing. I'll see you guys tomorrow.